Section 35 of The Anatomy of Melancholy, Volume 2. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Sean Michael Hogan. The Anatomy of Melancholy, Volume 2, by Robert Burton, Section 35. Partition 2, Section 5, Member 1, Subsections 1 to 4. Subsection 1. Particular cure of the three several kinds of head melancholy. The general cures thus briefly examined and discussed, it remains now to apply these medicines to the three particular species or kinds that, according to the several parts affected, each man may tell in some sort how to help or ease himself. I will treat of head melancholy first, in which, as in all other good cures, we must begin with diet, as a matter of most moment, able oftentimes of itself to work this effect. I have read, saith Laurentius, that in old diseases which have gotten the upper hand, or a habit, the manner of living is to more purpose than whatsoever can be drawn out of the most precious boxes of the apothecaries. This diet, as I have said, is not only in choice of meat and drink, but of all those other non-natural things. Let air be clear and moist most part. Diet moistening, of good juice, easy of digestion, and not windy. Drink clear and well brewed, not too strong nor too small. Make a melancholy man fat, as Rhasis saith, and thou hast finished the cure. Exercise not too remiss nor too violent. Sleep a little more than ordinary. Excrements daily to be voided by art or nature, and which Fernelius enjoins his patient, above the rest, to avoid all passions and perturbations of the mind. Let him not be alone or idle, in any kind of melancholy, but still accompanied with such friends and familiars he most affects, neatly dressed, washed, and combed, according to his ability at least, in clean sweet linen, spruce, handsome, decent, and good apparel. For nothing sooner dejects a man than want, squalor, and nastiness, foul or old clothes out of fashion. Concerning the medicinal part, he that will satisfy himself at large in this precedent of diet, and see all at once the whole cure and manner of it in every distinct species, let him consult with Gordonius, Valescus, with Prosper Calenius, Liber de Atrabile, Cesium, Laurentius, chapter 8 and 9 de Melancholia, Aelian Montaltus de Melancholia, chapters 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, Donatus ab Altomari, chapter 7, Hercules de Saxonia, Savonarola, Skenkius, Heurnius, Victorius Faventius, Hildesheim, Plater, Stokerus, Petrus Baverus, Forestus, Fuchsius, Capivaccius, Rondeletius, Jason Pratensis, Sallustius Salvianus, Iacinus, Ludovicus Alexander Massaria, Olerius, etc., that have culled out of those old Greeks, Arabians, and Latins whatsoever is observable or fit to be used. Or let him read those counsels and consultations of Hugo Senensis, Concilia 13 and 14, Rainerus Solanander, Concilium 6, section 1, and Concilium 3, section 3, Crato, Concilium 16, book 1, Montanus 20, 22, and his following counsels, Lelius Afonte Egubinus, consultation 44, 69, 77, 125, 129, 142, Fernelius, Concilia 44, 45, 46, Julius Caesar Claudinus, Mercurialis, Frambesarius, Senertus, etc., wherein he shall find particular receipts, the whole method, preparatives, purgers, correctors, averters, cordials in great variety and abundance, out of which, because every man cannot attend to read or peruse them, I will collect for the benefit of the reader some few more notable medicines. Subsection 2. Bloodletting. Phlebotomy is promiscuously used before and after physic, commonly before, and upon occasion is often reiterated, if there be any need at least of it. For Galen and many others make a doubt of bleeding at all in this kind of head melancholy. If the malady, saith Piso, chapter 23, and Altomarus, chapter 7, Fuchsius, chapter 33, shall proceed primarily from the misaffected brain, the patient in such case shall not need at all to bleed, except the blood otherwise abound, the veins be full, inflamed blood, and the party ready to run mad. In immaterial melancholy, which especially comes from a cold distemperature of spirits, Hercules de Saxonia, chapter 17, will not admit of phlebotomy. Laurentius chapter 9 approves it out of the authority of the Arabians. But as Mesue, Rhasis, Alexander appoint, especially in the head, to open the veins of the forehead, nose, and ears is good. They commonly set cupping glasses on the party's shoulders, having first scarified the place. They apply horseleeches on the head, and in all melancholy diseases, whether essential or accidental, they cause the hemorrhoids to be opened, having the 11th aphorism of the 6th book of Hippocrates for their ground and warrant, which saith, that in melancholy and mad men the varicose tumour or hemorrhoids appearing doth heal the same. Valescus prescribes bloodletting in all 3 kinds, whom Sallustius Salvianus follows. If the blood abound, which is discerned by the fullness of the veins, his precedent diet, the party's laughter, age, etc., begin with the median or middle vein of the arm. If the blood be ruddy and clear, stop it. But if black in the springtime, or a good season, or thick, let it run, according to the party's strength. And some 8 or 12 days after, open the head vein and the veins in the forehead, or provoke it out of the nostrils, or cupping glasses, etc. Trallianus allows of this, if there have been any suppression or stopping of blood at nose, or hemorrhoids, or women's months, then to open a vein in the head or about the ankles. Yet he doth hardly approve of this course, if melancholy be situated in the head alone, or in any other dotage, except it primarily proceed from blood, or that the malady be increased by it. For bloodletting refrigerates and dries up, except the body be very full of blood, and a kind of ruddiness in the face. Therefore I conclude with Aretius, before you let blood, deliberate of it, and well consider all circumstances belonging to it. Subsection 3. Preparatives and Purgers. After bloodletting we must proceed to other medicines. First prepare and then purge. Augie stabulum purgare. Make the body clean before we hope to do any good. Walter Bruhl would have a practitioner begin first with a clyster of his, which he prescribes before bloodletting. The common sort, as Mercurialis, Montaltus, Cap 30, etc., proceed from lenitives to preparatives, and so to purgers. Lenitives are well known, electuarium lenitivum, diaphenicum diacatholicon, etc. Preparatives are usually syrups of borage, bugloss, apples, fumitory, thyme, and epithyme, with double as much of the same decoction or distilled water, or of the waters of bugloss, balm, hops, endive, scolopendry, fumitory, etc., or these sodden in whey, which must be reiterated and used for many days together. Purges come last, which must not be used at all if the malady may be otherwise helped, because they weaken nature and dry so much, and in giving of them we must begin with the gentlest first. Some forbid all hot medicines, as Alexander and Salvianus, etc. Ne inseniores indefiant, hot medicines increase the disease by drying too much. Purge downward rather than upward, use potions rather than pills, and when you begin physic, persevere and continue in a course, for as one observes, movere et non educere in omnibus malum est, to stir up the humour, as one purge commonly doth, and not to prosecute, doth more harm than good. They must continue in a course of physic, yet not so that they tire and oppress nature, danda quies naturae, they must now and then remit, and let nature have some rest. The most gentle purges to begin with are senna, cassia, epithyme, myrabolania, catholicon. If these prevail not, we may proceed to stronger, as the confection of hamach, pil inde, fumitore, deasieret, of lapis armanus and lazuli, diasenna, or if pills be too dry, some prescribe both hellebores in the first place, amongst the rest aretus, because this disease will resist a gentle medicine. Laurentius and Hercules de Saxonia would have antimony tried last, if the party be strong, and it warily given. Trincavelius prefers hierologodium, to whom Francis Alexander subscribes, a very good medicine they account it. But Crato, in a counsel of his for the Duke of Bavaria's chancellor, wholly rejects it. I find a vast chaos of medicines, a confusion of receipts and magistrals amongst writers appropriated to this disease. Some of the chiefest I will rehearse. To be seasick first is very good at seasonable times. Helleborismus Mattioli, with which he vaunts and boasts he did so many several cures, I never gave it, saith he, but after once or twice by the help of God they were happily cured. The manner of making it he sets down at large in his 3rd book of epistles to George Hankshius, a physician. Walter Bruhl and Heurnius make mention of it with great approbation. So doth Sckenkius in his memorable cures and experimental medicines. That famous Helleborhisma of Montanus, which he so often repeats in his consultations and counsels, as 28 pro melancholio sacerdote, et concilium 148 pro hypochondriaco, and cracks, to be a most sovereign remedy for all melancholy persons, which he hath often given without offence, and found by long experience and observations to be such. Quercetan prefers a syrup of hellebore in his Spagirica Pharmacia, and Hellebor's extract, chapter 5 of his invention likewise, a most safe medicine and not unfit to be given children, before all remedies whatsoever. Paracelsus in his book of black hellebore admits this medicine, but as it is prepared by him, it is most certain, saith he, that the virtue of this herb is great, and admirable in effect, and little differing from balm itself. And he that knows well how to make use of it hath more art than all their books contain, or all the doctors in Germany can show. Aelianus Montaltus, in his exquisite work De Morbibus Capitis, chapter 31, sets a special receipt of his own, which in his practice he fortunately used. Because it is but short, I will set it down. Prescription: Sirope de pomis, 2 ounces. Aquae boragicae, 4 ounces. Ellebori nigri per noctem infusi in ligatura, 6 vel 8 gram manifacta collatura exhibe. Other receipts of the same to this purpose you shall find in him. Valescus admires pulvis hali, and Jason Pratensis after him, the confection of which our new London pharmacopoeia hath lately revived. Put case, saith he, all other medicines fail, by the help of God this alone shall do it, and 'tis a crowned medicine which must be kept in secret. Prescription: Epiteme half an ounce, lapidis lazuli, agarici anna 3 ounces, scamnoniae 1 dram, Cariophylorum numero 20 pulvescentur omnia, et ipsius pulveris 4 singulis septimanus assumat. To these I may add Arnoldi vinum buglossalum, or borage wine, before mentioned, which Mizaldus calls vinum mirabile, a wonderful wine, and Stockerus vouchsafes to repeat verbatim amongst other receipts. Rubius his compound water out of Savonarola, Pinetus his balm, Cardan's pulvis iacinti, with which, in his book De Curis Admirandis, he boasts that he had cured many melancholy persons in 8 days, which Sckenkius puts amongst his observable medicines. Altomarus his syrup, with which he calls God so solemnly to witness he hath in his kind done many excellent cures, and which Sckenkius mentioneth, Daniel Sennertus so much commends. Rulandus's admirable water for melancholy, which he names Spiritum Vitae Aureum Panaceum, what not, and his absolute medicine of 50 eggs, to be taken 3 in a morning, with a powder of his. Faventinus doubles this number of eggs, and will have 101 to be taken by 3, and 3 in like sort, which Sallust Salvian approves with some of the same powder, till all be spent, a most excellent remedy for all melancholy and mad men. Prescription: Epiteme, timi, anna drachmas 2, sacchari albi unciam unam, croci granatria, cinnamoni drachmam unam, misce, fiat pulvis. All these yet are nothing to those chemical preparatives of aqua Caledonia, quintessence of hellebore, salts, extracts, distillations, oils, aurum potibile, etc. Dr. Anthony in his book De Auro Potibili, edited 1600, is all in all for it. And though all the schools of Galenists, with a wicked and unthankful pride and scorn, detest it in their practice, yet in more grievous diseases, when their vegetals will do no good, they are compelled to seek the help of minerals, though they use them rashly, unprofitably, slackly, and to no purpose. Renanus, a Dutch chemist, in his book De Sale e Puteo Emergente, takes upon him to apologize for Anthony, and sets light by all that speak against him. But what do I meddle with this great controversy, which is the subject of many volumes? Let Paracelsus, Quercetan, Crolius, and the brethren of the Rosy Cross defend themselves as they may. Crato, Erastus, and the Galenists oppugn Paracelsus. He brags on the other side he did more famous cures by this means than all the Galenists in Europe, and calls himself a monarch. Galen, Hippocrates, infants, illiterate, etc. As Thessalus of old railed against those ancient Asclepiadian writers, he condemns others, insults, triumphs, overcomes all antiquity, saith Galen as if he spake to him, declares himself a conqueror, and crowns his own doings. One drop of their chemical preparatives shall do more good than all their fulsome potions. Erastus and the rest of the Galenists vilify them on the other side as heretics in physic. Paracelsus did that in physic which Luther in divinity. A drunken rogue he was, a base fellow, a magician. He had the devil for his master, devils his familiar companions, and what he did was done by the help of the devil. Thus they contend and rail, and every mart write books pro and con, et ad hoc sub judice lis est. Let them agree as they will, I proceed. Subsection 4. Averters. Averters and purgers must go together, as tending all to the same purpose, to divert this rebellious humour and turn it another way. In this range clysters and suppositories challenge a chief place, to draw this humour from the brain and heart to the more ignoble parts. Some would have them still used a few days between, and those to be made with the boiled seeds of anise, fennel, and bastard saffron, hops, thyme, epithyme, mallows, fumitory, bugloss, polypody, senna, diasene, hammock, cassia, diacatholicon, eorlagodium, oil of violets, sweet almonds, etc. For without question a clyster opportunely used cannot choose in this, as most other maladies, but to do very much good. Clysteres nutriunt, sometimes clysters nourish, as they may be prepared, as I was informed not long since by a learned lecture of our natural philosophy reader, which he handled by way of discourse, out of some other noted physicians. Such things as provoke urine most commend, but not sweat. Trincavelius, Concilium 16, Chapter 1, in head melancholy forbids it. Petrus Biarus and others approve frictions of the outward parts, and to bathe them in warm water. Instead of ordinary frictions, Cardan prescribes rubbing with nettles till they blister the skin, which likewise Basardus Visontinus so much magnifies. Sneezing, masticatories, and nasals are generally received. Montaltus, Chapter 34, Hildesheim, gives several recipes of all three. Hercules de Saxonia relates of an empiric in Venice that had a strong water to purge by the mouth and nostrils, which he still used in head melancholy, and would sell for no gold. To open months and hemorrhoids is very good physic, if they have been formerly stopped. Faventinus would have them opened with horseleeches, so would Hercules de Saxonia. Julius Alexandrinus Concilium 185, Scoltzii thinks aloes fitter. Most approve horseleeches in this case to be applied to the forehead, nostrils, and other places. Montaltus, Chapter 29, out of Alexander and others, prescribes cupping glasses, and issues in the left thigh. Aratus, Book 7, Chapter 5, Paulus Regolinus, Silvius, will have them without scarification applied to the shoulders and back, thighs, and feet. Montaltus, Chapter 34, bids open an issue in the arm, or hinder part of the head. Piso enjoins ligatures, frictions, suppositories, and cupping glasses, still without scarification, and the rest. Cauteries and hot irons are to be used in the suture of the crown, and the seared or ulcerated place suffered to run a good while. 'Tis not amiss to bore the skull with an instrument, to let out the fuliginous vapours. Sallustius Salvianus, De Re Medica, Book 2, Chapter 1, because this humour hardly yields to other physic, would have the leg cauterized, or the left leg below the knee, and the head bored in 2 or 3 places, for that it much avails to the exhalation of the vapours. I saw, saith he, a melancholy man at Rome, that by no remedies could be healed, but when by chance he was wounded in the head and the skull broken, he was excellently cured. Another, to the admiration of the beholders, breaking his head with a fall from on high, was instantly recovered of his dotage. Gordonius, Chapter 13, Part 2, would have these cauteries tried last, when no other physic will serve. The head to be shaved and bored to let out fumes, which without doubt will do much good. I saw a melancholy man wounded in the head with a sword, his brain-pan broken. So long as the wound was open, he was well, but when his wound was healed, his dotage returned again. But Alexander Massaria, a professor in Padua, will allow no cauteries at all. 'Tis too stiff a humour and too thick, as he holds, to be so evaporated. Guianerius, Chapter 8, Tract 15, cured a nobleman in Savoy by boring alone, leaving the hole open a month together, by means of which, after 2 years' melancholy and madness, he was delivered. All approve of this remedy in the suture of the crown, but Arculanus would have the cautery to be made with gold. In many other parts these cauteries are prescribed for melancholy men, as in the thighs, Mercurialis Concilium 86, arms, legs, idem Concilium 6 and 19 and 25, Montanus 86, Rodericus a Fonseca Tome 2, Consultation 84, Pro Hypochondriaco Coxa Dextra, etc., but most in the head, if other physic will do no good. End of section 35. Recording by Sean Michael Hogan, St. John's, Newfoundland, Canada. Section 36 of the Anatomy of Melancholy, Volume 2. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Sean Michael Hogan. The Anatomy of Melancholy, Volume 2, by Robert Burton, Section 36. Partition 2, Section 5, Member 1, Subsection 5. Alteratives and cordials, corroborating, resolving the reliques, and mending the temperament. Because this humour is so malign of itself, and so hard to be removed, the reliques are to be cleansed by alteratives, cordials, and such means. The temper is to be altered and amended with such things as fortify and strengthen the heart and brain, which are commonly both affected in this malady, and do mutually misaffect one another, which are still to be given every other day, or some few days inserted after a purge, or like physic as occasion serves, and are of such force that many times they help alone, and as Arnoldus holds in his aphorisms, are to be preferred before all other medicines, in what kind soever. Amongst this number of cordials and alteratives I do not find a more present remedy than a cup of wine or strong drink, if it be soberly and opportunely used. It makes a man bold, hardy, courageous, whetteth the wit, if moderately taken, and as Plutarch saith, it makes those which are otherwise dull to exhale and evaporate like frankincense, or quicken, Xenophon adds, as oil doth fire. A famous cordial Matthiolus in Dioscordum calls it an excellent nutriment to refresh the body. It makes a good colour, a flourishing age, helps concoction, fortifies the stomach, takes away obstructions, provokes urine, drives out excrements, procures sleep, clears the blood, expels wind and cold poisons, attenuates, concocts, dissipates all thick vapours, and fuliginous humours. And that which is all in all to my purpose, it takes away fear and sorrow. Cura sedaces dissipat aevius. It glads the heart of man. Psalm 104:15. Hilaritatis dulce seminarium. Helena's bowl, the sole nectar of the gods, or that true Nepenthes in Homer, which puts away care and grief, as Oribasius and some others will, was naught else but a cup of good wine. It makes the mind of the king and of the fatherless both one, of the bond and freeman, poor and rich. It turneth all his thoughts to joy and mirth, makes him remember no sorrow or debt, but enricheth his heart, and makes him speak by talents. Esdras 3, 19, 20, 21. It gives life itself, spirits, wit, etc., for which cause the ancients called Bacchus liber pater a liberando, and sacrificed to Bacchus and Pallas still upon an altar. Wine measurably drunk, and in time, brings gladness and cheerfulness of mind. It cheereth God and men. Judges 9:13. Laetitiae Bacchus dator, it makes an old wife dance, and such as are in misery to forget evil, and be merry. Bacchus et afflictis requiem mortalibus affert, crura licet duro compere vincta forent. Wine makes a troubled soul to rest, though feet in fetters be oppressed. Demetrius in Plutarch, when he fell into Seleucus' hands and was prisoner in Syria, spent his time with dice and drink that he might so ease his discontented mind, and to avoid those continual cogitations of his present condition wherewith he was tormented. Therefore Solomon, Proverbs 31:6, bids wine be given to him that is ready to perish, and to him that hath grief of heart let him drink, that he forget his poverty, and remember his misery no more. Solicitis animis onus eximit. It easeth a burdened soul, nothing speedier, nothing better, which the prophet Zechariah perceived when he said that in the time of Messias they of Ephraim should be glad, and their heart should rejoice as through wine, all which makes me very well approve of that pretty description of a feast in Bartholomeus Anglicus, when grace was said, their hands washed, and the guests sufficiently exhilarated with good discourse, sweet music, dainty fare, exhilarationis gratia, pocula iterum atque iterum offeruntur, as a corollary to conclude the feast, and continue their mirth, a grace cup came in to cheer their hearts, and they drank healths to one another again and again. Which, as Fredericus Matenesius, was an old custom in all ages in every commonwealth, so as they be not enforced, bibere per violentiam, but as in that royal feast of Ahasuerus, which lasted 180 days, without compulsion they drank by order in golden vessels, when and what they would themselves. This of drink is a most easy and parable remedy, a common, a cheap, still ready against fear, sorrow, and such troublesome thoughts that molest the mind. As brimstones with fire, the spirits on a sudden are enlightened by it. No better physic, saith Rhasis, for a melancholy man, and he that can keep company and carouse needs no other medicines, 'tis enough. His countryman Avicenna proceeds farther yet, and will have him that is troubled in mind or melancholy, not to drink only, but now and then to be drunk. Excellent good physic it is for this and many other diseases. Manunus will have them to be so once a month at least, and gives his reasons for it, because it scours the body by vomit, urine, sweat, of all manner of superfluities, and keeps it clean. Of the same mind is Seneca the philosopher, in his book De Tranquillitate, Book 1, Chapter 15. Nonunquam ut in aliis morbis ad ebrietatem usque veniendum. Curas deprimit, tristiatse meritur. It is good sometimes to be drunk. It helps sorrow, depresseth cares, and so concludes this tract with a cup of wine. Abes, serene carissime, quae ad tranquillitatem anime pertinent. But these are epicureal tenets, tending to looseness of life, luxury and atheism, maintained alone by some heathens, dissolute Arabians, profane Christians, and are exploded by Rabbi Moses, Placentius, Valescus de Taranta, and most accurately ventilated by Johannes Silvaticus, a late writer and physician of Milan, where you shall find this tenet copiously confuted. Howsoever you say, if this be true, that wine and strong drink have such virtue to expel fear and sorrow, and to exhilarate the mind, ever after let's drink and be merry. Prome recunditum, lide strenua, cecubum, capacioras puer uc aversifos, et quia vina aut lesbia. Come, lusty Leda, fill us a cup of sack, and Syrah drawer, bigger pots we lack, and CO wines that have so good a smack. I say with him in Aulus Gellius, let us maintain the vigour of our souls with a moderate cup of wine, natis in usum laetitiae sifis, and drink to refresh our mind. If there be any cold sorrow in it, or torpid bashfulness, let's wash it all away. Nunc vino pellete curas, so saith Horace, so saith Anacreon. Metionte garme caestae, pol creson et anonta. Let's drive down care with a cup of wine, and so say I too, though I drink none myself, for all this may be done, so that it be modestly, soberly, opportunely used, so that they be not drunk with wine, wherein is excess, which our apostle forewarns, for as Chrysostom well comments on that place, ad laetitium datum est vinum, non ad ebrietatem, 'tis for mirth wine, but not for madness. And will you know where, when, and how that is to be understood? Visticere ubi bonum sit vinum. Audi quid dicat scriptura, hear the scriptures, give wine to them that are in sorrow, or as Paul bid Timothy drink wine for his stomach's sake, for concoction, health, or some such honest occasion. Otherwise, as Pliny telleth, if singular moderation be not had, nothing so pernicious, 'tis mere vinegar, blandus daemon, poison itself. But here a more fearful doom, Habakkuk 2:15 and 16. Woe be to him that makes his neighbour drunk, shameful spewing shall be upon his glory. Let not good fellows triumph therefore, said Matthiolus, that I have so much commended wine, if it be immoderately taken, instead of making glad, it confounds both body and soul, it makes a giddy head, a sorrowful heart. And 'twas well said of the poet of old, Vine causeth mirth and grief, nothing so good for some, so bad for others, especially as one observes, qui a causa callida male abent, that are hot or inflamed. And so of spices, they alone, as I have showed, cause head melancholy themselves. They must not use wine as an ordinary drink, or in their diet. But to determine with Laurentius, wine is bad for madmen, and such as are troubled with heat in their inner parts or brains. But to melancholy, which is cold, as most is, Wine, soberly used, may be very good. I may say the same of the decoction of China roots, sassafras, sarsaparilla, guaiacum. China, saith Manardus, makes a good colour in the face, takes away melancholy, and all infirmities proceeding from cold. Even so, sarsaparilla provokes sweat mightily, guaiacum dries. Claudinus, Montanus, Capivaccius, Scoltzii make frequent and good use of guaiacum and China, so that the liver be not incensed, goods for such as are cold, as most melancholy men are, but by no means to be mentioned in hot. The Turks have a drink called coffee, for they use no wine, so named of a berry as black as soot, and as bitter, like that black drink which was in use amongst the Lacedaemonians, and perhaps the same, which they sip still of, and sup as warm as they can suffer. They spend much time in these coffee houses, which are somewhat like our ale-houses or taverns, and there they sit chatting and drinking to drive away the time, and to be merry together, because they find by experience that kind of drink, so used, helpeth digestion, and procureth alacrity. Some of them take opium to this purpose. Borage, balm, saffron, gold I have spoken of. Montaltus commends scorzonera roots condite. Garcius ab orto makes mention of an herb called datura, which, if it be eaten for 24 hours following, takes away all sense of grief, makes them inclined to laughter and mirth. And another called bauge, like in effect to opium, which puts them for a time into a kind of ecstasy, and makes them gently to laugh. One of the Roman emperors had a seed, which he did ordinarily eat to exhilarate himself. Christophorus Ererus prefers bezoar stone, and the confection of alkermes before other cordials, and amber in some cases. Alkermes comforts the inner parts, and bezoar stone hath an especial virtue against all melancholy affections. It refresheth the heart, and corroborates the whole body. Amber provokes urine, helps the body, breaks wind, etc. After a purge, 3 or 4 grains of bezoar stone, and 3 grains of ambergris, drunk or taken in borage or bugloss water, in which gold hot hath been quenched, will do much good, and the purge shall diminish less, the heart so refreshed, of the strength and substance of the body. To bezoar stone most subscribe, Manardus and many others. It takes away sadness, and makes him merry that useth it. I have seen some that have been much diseased with faintness, swooning, and melancholy, that taking the weight of 3 grains of this stone in the water of ox tongue have been cured. Garcius ab orto brags how many desperate cures he hath done upon melancholy men by this alone, when all physicians had forsaken them. But alkermes many except against, and in some cases it may help, if it be good and of the best, such as that of Montpellier in France, which Ioricus Sinterus Itinerario Galliae so much magnifies, and would have no traveller omit to see it made. But it is not so general a medicine as the other. Fernelius, Concilium 49, suspects alkermes by reason of its heat. Nothing, saith he, sooner exasperates this disease than the use of hot working meats and medicines, and would have them for that cause warily taken. I conclude, therefore, of this and all other medicines, as Thucydides of the plague at Athens, no remedy could be prescribed for it, nam quod uni profuit, hoc aliis erat exitio. There is no Catholic medicine to be had, that which helps one is pernicious to another. Dia margaritum frigidum, diambra, dia boraginatum, electuarium letificans galani et resis, digemis, dianthos, diamoscum dulce et amarum, electuarium conciliatoris, syrup sidiniorum de pomis, conserves of roses, violets, fumitory, anula campana, satyrion, lemons, orange pills, condite, etc. have their good use. Every physician is full of such receipts. One only I will add for the rareness of it, which I find recorded by many learned authors as an approved medicine against dotage, head melancholy, and such diseases of the brain. Take a ram's head that never meddled with an ewe, cut off at a blow, and the horns only take away. Boil it well, skin and wool together. After it is well sawed, take out the brains, and put these spices to it: cinnamon, ginger, nutmeg, mace, cloves. Mingle the powder of these spices with it, and heat them in a platter upon a chafing dish of coals together, stirring them well, that they do not burn. Take heed it be not overmuch dried, or drier than a calf's brains ready to be eaten. Keep it so prepared, and for 3 days give it the patient fasting, so that he fast 2 hours after it. It may be eaten with bread, in an egg or broth, or any way, so it be taken. For 14 days let him use this diet, drink no wine, etc. Gesner, Caracterius, Iatro, mention this medicine, though with some variation. He that list may try it, and many such. Odoraments to smell to, of rose water, violet flowers, balm, rose cakes, vinegar, etc., do much recreate the brains and spirits, according to Solomon. Proverbs 27:9. They rejoice the heart, and as some say, nourish. 'Tis a question commonly controverted in our schools. An odores nutriant? Let Ficinus, Book 2, Chapter 18, decide it. Many arguments he brings to prove it. As of Democritus, that lived by the smell of bread alone, applied to his nostrils for some few days, when for old age he could eat no meat. Ferrerius speaks of an excellent confection of his making, of wine, saffron, etc., which he prescribed to dull, weak, feeble, and dying men to smell to, and by it to have done very much good. Eque fere profuse olfactu et potu, as if he had given them drink. Our noble and learned Lord Verulam, in his book De Vita et Morte, commends, therefore, all such cold smells as any way serve to refrigerate the spirits. Montanus, Concilium 31, prescribes a form which he would have his melancholy patient never to have out of his hands. If you will have them spagyrically prepared, look in Oswaldus Crollius. Irrigations of the head shaven, of the flowers of water lilies, lettuce, violets, chamomile, wild mallows, wether's head, etc., must be used many mornings together. Montanus, Concilium 31, would have the head so washed once a week. Laelius, a Fonte Eugubinus, Consultation 44, for an Italian count, troubled with head melancholy, repeats many medicines which he tried, but 2 alone which did the cure: use of whey made of goat's milk, with the extract of hellebore, and irrigations of the head with water lilies, lettuce, violets, chamomile, etc., upon the suture of the crown. Piso recommends a ram's lungs applied hot to the forepart of the head, or a young lamb divided in the back, exenterated, etc. All acknowledge the chief cure in moistening throughout. Some, saith Laurentius, use powders and caps to the brain. But forasmuch as such aromatical things are hot and dry, they must be sparingly administered. Unto the heart we may do well to apply bags, epithems, ointments, of which Laurentius chapter 9 De Melancholia gives examples. Bruhl prescribes an epithem for the heart of bugloss, borage, water lily, violet waters, sweet wine, balm leaves, nutmegs, cloves, etc. For the belly, make a fomentation of oil, in which the seeds of cumin, rue, carrots, dill, have been boiled. Baths are of wonderful great force in this malady, much admired by Galen, Aetius, Rhasis, etc., of sweet water, in which is boiled the leaves of mallows, roses, violets, water lilies, wether's head, flowers of bugloss, chamomile, melilot, etc. Guyaner, chapter 8, treatise 15, would have them used twice a day, and when they came forth of the baths, their backbones to be anointed with oil of almonds, violets, nymphea, fresh capon grease, etc. Amulets and things to be borne about, I find prescribed, taxed by some, approved by Renodius, Platerus, Amuleta inquit non negligenda, and others. Look for them in Mizaldus, Porta, Albertus, etc. Basardus Viscontus commends Hypericon, or St. John's wort gathered on a Friday in the hour of Jupiter when it comes to his effectual operation, that is about the full moon in July. So gathered and borne, or hung about the neck, it mightily helps this affection, and drives away all fantastical spirits. Philes, a Greek author that flourished in the time of Michael Palaeologus, writes that a sheep or kid's skin, whom a wolf worried, Aetus in humani raptus ab ore lupi, ought not at all to be worn about a man, because it causeth palpitation of the heart, not for any fear, but a secret virtue which amulets have. A ring made of the hoof of an ass's right forefoot carried about, etc. I say with Renodius, they are not altogether to be rejected. Peony doth cure epilepsy. Precious stones most diseases. A wolf's dung borne with one helps the colic, a spider an ague, etc. Being in the country in the vacation time not many years since, at Lindley in Leicestershire, my father's house, I first observed this amulet of a spider in a nutshell lapped in silk, etc., so applied for an ague by my mother, whom, although I knew to have excellent skill in chirurgy, sore eyes, aches, etc., and such experimental medicines as all the country where she dwelt can witness, to have done many famous and good cures upon divers poor folks that were otherwise destitute of help. Yet among all other experiments this methought was most absurd and ridiculous. I could see no warrant for it. Quid aranea cum febre? For what antipathy? till at length rambling amongst authors, as often I do, I found this very medicine in Dioscorides, approved by Matthiolus, repeated by Aldevarandus, Chapter de Aranea, Book de Insectis. I began to have a better opinion of it, and to give more credit to amulets, when I saw it in some parties answer to experience. Some medicines are to be exploded, that consist of words, characters, spells, and charms, which can do no good at all, but out of a strong conceit, as Pomponatius proves, or the devil's policy, who was the first founder and teacher of them. End of section 36. Recording by Sean Michael Hogan, St. John's, Newfoundland, Canada. Section 37 of The Anatomy of Melancholy, Volume 2. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Sean Michael Hogan. The Anatomy of Melancholy, Volume 2, by Robert Burton. Section 37. Partition 2, Section 5, Member 1, Subsection 6. Subsection 6. Correctors of accidents to procure sleep, against fearful dreams, redness, etc. When you have used all good means and helps of alteratives, averters, diminutives, yet there will be still certain accidents to be corrected and amended, as of waking, fearful dreams, flushing in the face to some ruddiness, etc. Waking, by reason of their continual cares, fears, sorrows, dry brains, is a symptom that much crucifies melancholy men, and must therefore be speedily helped, and sleep by all means procured, which sometimes is a sufficient remedy of itself without any other physic. Sckenkius, in his Observations, hath an example of a woman that was so cured. The means to procure it are inward or outward. Inwardly taken are simples or compounds. Simples, as poppy, nymphea, violets, roses, lettuce, mandrake, henbane, nightshade or solanum, saffron, hempseed, nutmegs, willows with their seeds, juice, decoctions, distilled waters, etc. Compounds are syrups or opiates, syrup of poppy, violets, verbasco, which are commonly taken with distilled waters. Requies Nicolae, Phelonium Romanum, Triferum Magna, Pilulae, Decinoglossa, Discordium, Laudanum, Paracelsi, opium, are in use, etc. Country folks commonly make a posset of hempseed, which Fuchsius in his herbal so much discommends, yet I have seen the good effect, and it may be used where better medicines are not to be had. Laudanum Paracelsi is prescribed in 2 or 3 grains, with a dram of Diascordium, which Oswald Crollius commends. Opium itself is most part used outwardly, to smell to in a ball, though commonly so taken by the Turks to the same quantity for a cordial, and at Goa in the Indies, the dose 40 or 50 grains. Rulandus calls Requiem Nicolae ultimum refugium, the last refuge, but of this and the rest look for peculiar receipts in Victorius Faventinus, Aernius, Hildesheim, etc. Outwardly used as oil of nutmegs by extraction, or expression with rose water to anoint the temples, oils of poppy, nenuphar, mandrake, purslan, violets, all to the same purpose. Montanus, Concilia 24 and 25, much commends odoraments of opium, vinegar, and rosewater. Laurentius, Chapter 9, prescribes pomanders and nodules, see the receipts in him. Quadroncus, wormwood to smell to. Unguentum alabastratum, populeum, are used to anoint the temples, nostrils, or if they be too weak, they mix saffron and opium. Take a grain or 2 of opium, and dissolve it with 3 or 4 drops of rosewater in a spoon, and after mingle with it as much unguentum populeum as a nut. Use it as before. Or else take half a gram of opium, unguentum populeum, oil of nenuphar, rose water, rose vinegar of each half an ounce, with as much virgin wax as a nut. Anoint your temples with some of it. Ad oram somni. Sacks of wormwood, mandrake, henbane, roses made like pillows and laid under the patient's head are mentioned by Cardan and Mizaldus, to anoint the soles of the feet with the fat of a dormouse, the teeth with earwax of a dog, swine's gall, hare's ears, charms, etc. Frontlets are well known to every good wife, rosewater and vinegar with a little woman's milk, and nutmegs grated upon a rose cake applied to both temples. For an emplaster, take of castoreum a dram and a half, of opium half a scruple, mixed both together with a little water of life. Make 2 small plasters thereof, and apply them to the temples. Rulandus prescribes epithems and lotions of the head, with a decoction of flowers of nymphea, violet leaves, mandrake roots, henbane, white poppy. Hercules de Saxonia, stilichidia, or droppings, etc. Lotions of the feet do much avail of the said herbs. By these means, saith Laurentius, I think you may procure sleep to the most melancholy man in the world. Some use horseleeches behind the ears, and apply opium to the place. Bayerus, Book 2, Chapter 13, sets down some remedies against fearful dreams, and such as walk and talk in their sleep. Baptista Porta, to procure pleasant dreams and quiet rest, would have you take hippoglossa, or the herb horse-tongue, balm, to use them or their distilled waters after supper, etc. Such men must not eat beans, peas, garlic, onions, cabbage, venison, hare, use black wines, or any meat hard of digestion at supper, or lie on their backs, etc. Rusticus pudor, bashfulness, flushing in the face, high colour, ruddiness, are common grievances, which much torture many melancholy men, when they meet a man, or come in company of their betters, strangers, after a meal, or if they drink a cup of wine or strong drink. They are as red and fleet, and sweat as if they had been at a mayor's feast. Praesertim si metus accesserit. It exceeds. They think every man observes, takes notice of it, and fear alone will affect it, suspicion without any other cause. Sckenkius speaks of a waiting gentlewoman in the Duke of Savoy's court that was so much offended with it that she kneeled down to him and offered Biarus, a physician, all that she had to be cured of it. And 'tis most true that Antony Ludovicus saith in his book De Pudore, bashfulness either hurts or helps, such men I am sure it hurts. If it proceed from suspicion or fear, Felix Plater prescribes no other remedy but to reject and contemn it. Id populus curat silicet, as a worthy physician in our town said to a friend of mine in like case, complaining without a cause, suppose one look red, what matter is it? Make light of it, who observes it? If it trouble at or after meals, as Jobertus, after a little exercise or stirring, for many are then hot and red in the face, or if they do nothing at all, especially women, he would have them let blood in both arms, first one, then another, 2 or 3 days between, if blood abound. To use frictions of the other parts, feet especially, and washing of them, because of that consent which is between the head and the feet. And withal to refrigerate the face, by washing it often with rose, violet, nenuphar, lettuce, lovage waters, and the like. But the best of all is that lac virginale, or strained liquor of liturgy. It is diversely prepared. Quercetan commends the water of frog's spawn for ruddiness in the face. Crato, Concilium 283, Scoltzii, would fain have them use all summer the condite flowers of succory, strawberry water, roses, cupping glasses are good for the time, Concilia 285 et 286, and to defecate impure blood with the infusion of senna, savory, balm water. Valerius knew one cured alone with the use of succory boiled and drunk for 5 months, every morning in the summer. It is good overnight to anoint the face with hare's blood, and in the morning to wash it with strawberry and cowslip water, the juice of distilled lemons, juice of cucumbers, or to use the seeds of melons, or kernels of peaches beaten small, or the roots of aron, and mixed with wheat bran to bake it in an oven, and to crumble it in strawberry water, or to put fresh cheese curds to a red face. If it trouble them at meal times, that flushing, as oft it doth, with sweating or the like, they must avoid all violent passions and actions, as laughing, etc., strong drink, and drink very little. 1 draught, saith Crato, and that about the midst of their meal. Avoid at all times indurate salt, and especially spice and windy meat. Crato prescribes the condite fruit of wild rose to a nobleman his patient, to be taken before dinner or supper, to the quantity of a chestnut. It is made of sugar, as that of quinces. The decoction of the roots of sow thistle before meat, by the same author, is much approved. To eat of a baked apple some advise, or of a preserved quince, cumin seed prepared with meat instead of salt, to keep down fumes, not to study or to be intentive after meals. To apply cupping glasses to the shoulders is very good. For the other kind of ruddiness which is settled in the face with pimples, etc., because it pertains not to my subject, I will not meddle with it. I refer you to Crato's counsels, Arnoldus, Rolande, Peter Forestus de Foucault, Book 31, Observatio 2, Platerus, Mercurialis, Ulmus, Rondolitius, Aeonius, Menedus, and others that have written largely of it. Those other grievances and symptoms of headache, palpitation of heart, vertigo deliquium, etc., which trouble many melancholy men, because they are copiously handled apart in every physician, I do voluntarily omit. End of section 37. Recording by Sean Michael Hogan, St. John's, Newfoundland, Canada. Section 38 of the Anatomy of Melancholy, Volume 2. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Sean Michael Hogan. The Anatomy of Melancholy, Volume 2, by Robert Burton, Section 38. Partition 2, Section 5, Member 2. Cure of Melancholy over all the body. Where the melancholy blood possesseth the whole body with the brain, it is best to begin with bloodletting. The Greeks prescribed the median or middle vein to be opened, and so much blood to be taken away as the patient may well spare, and the cut that is made must be wide enough. The Arabians hold it fittest to be taken from that arm on which side there is more pain and heaviness in the head. If black blood issue forth, bleed on. If it be clear and good, let it be instantly suppressed, because the malice of melancholy is much corrected by the goodness of the blood. If the party's strength will not admit much evacuation in this kind at once, it must be assayed again and again. If it may not be conveniently taken from the arm, it must be taken from the knees and ankles, especially to such men or women whose hemorrhoids or months have been stopped. If the malady continue, it is not amiss to evacuate in a part in the forehead, and to virgins in the ankles, who are melancholy for love matters, so to widows that are much grieved and troubled with sorrow and cares, for bad blood flows in the heart, and so crucifies the mind. The hemorrhoids are to be opened with an instrument or horseleeches, etc. See more in Montaltus, chapter 29. Sckenkius hath an example of one that was cured by an accidental wound in his thigh. Much bleeding freed him from melancholy. Diet, diminutives, alteratives, cordials, correctors as before, intermixed as occasion serves. All their study must be to make a melancholy man fat, and then the cure is ended. Diuretics, or medicines to procure urine, are prescribed by some in this kind, hot and cold. Hot, where the heat of the liver doth not forbid. Cold, where the heat of the liver is very great. Amongst hot are parsley roots, lovage, fennel, etc. Cold, melon seeds, etc., with whey of goat's milk, which is the common conveyor. To purge and purify the blood, use sow thistle, succory, senna, endive, carduus benedictis, dandelion, hop, maidenhair, fumitory, bugloss, borage, etc., with their juice, decoctions, distilled water, syrups, etc. Oswaldus Crolius much admires salt of corals in this case. And Aetius, Ieram Archigenis, which is an excellent medicine to purify the blood, for all melancholy affections, falling sickness, none to be compared to it. End of section 38. Recording by Sean Michael Hogan, St. John's, Newfoundland, Canada. Section 39 of the Anatomy of Melancholy, Volume 2. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Sean Michael Hogan. The Anatomy of Melancholy, Volume 2, by Robert Burton, Section 39. Partition 2, Section 5, Member 3. Subsection 1. Cure of hypochondriacal melancholy. In this cure, as in the rest, is especially required the rectification of those 6 non-natural things above all, as good diet, which Montanus, Concilium 27, enjoins a French nobleman to have an especial care of it, without which all other remedies are in vain. Bloodletting is not to be used, except the patient's body be very full of blood, and that it be derived from the liver and spleen to the stomach and his vessels, then to draw it back, to cut the inner vein of either arm, some say the salvatella, and if the malady be continuate, to open a vein in the forehead. Preparatives and alteratives may be used as before, saving that there must be respect had as well to the liver, spleen, stomach, hypochondries, as to the heart and brain. to comfort the stomach and inner parts against wind and obstructions, by Areteus, Galen, Aetius, Aurelianus, etc., and many latter writers, are still prescribed the decoctions of wormwood, centaury, pennyroyal, betony, sodden and whey, and daily drunk. Many have been cured by this medicine alone. Prosper Altunus and some others as much magnify the water of Nile against this malady, an especial good remedy for windy melancholy. For which reason belike Ptolemaeus Philadelphus, when he married his daughter Berenice to the king of Assyria, as Celsus Book 2 records, magnis impensis nili aquam afferi usit, to his great charge caused the water of Nile to be carried with her, and gave command that during her life she should use no other drink. I find those that commend use of apples in splenetic and this kind of melancholy, lamb's wool some call it, which howsoever approved must certainly be corrected of cold rawness and wind. Codroncus in his book De Sale Absyn magnifies the oil and salt of wormwood above all other remedies, which works better and speedier than any simple whatsoever, and much to be preferred before all those fulsome decoctions and infusions, which must offend by reason of their quantity. This alone in a small measure taken expels wind, and that most forcibly, moves urine, cleanseth the stomach of all gross humours, crudities, helps appetite, etc. Arnoldus hath a wormwood wine which he would have used, which every pharmacopoeia speaks of. Diminutives and purges may be taken as before, of hiera, manna, cassia, which Montanus Concilium 230 for an Italian abbot in this kind prefers before all other simples, and these must be often used, still abstaining from those which are more violent, lest they do exasperate the stomach, etc., and the mischief by that means be increased. Though in some physicians I find very strong purgers, hellebore itself prescribed in this affection. If it long continue, vomits may be taken after meat, or otherwise gently procured with warm water, oxymel, etc., now and then. Fuchsius, chapter 33, prescribes hellebore, but still take heed in this malady, which I have often warned, of hot medicines, because, as Salvianus adds, drought follows heat, which increaseth the disease. And yet Baptista Sylvaticus Controversia 32 forbids cold medicines, because they increase obstructions and other bad symptoms. But this varies as the parties do, and 'tis not easy to determine which to use. The stomach most part in this infirmity is cold, the liver hot. Scarce therefore, which Montanus insinuates Concilium 229 for the Earl of Manfort, can you help the one and not hurt the other. Much discretion must be used. Take no physic at all, he concludes, without great need. Laelius Aegubinus Concilium for an hypochondriacal German prince used many medicines, but it was after signified to him in letters that the decoction of China and sassafras, and salt of sassafras, wrought him an incredible good. In his 108 consult, he used as happily the same remedies. This to a third might have been poison, by overheating his liver and blood. For the other parts look for remedies in Savonarola, Gordonius, Massaria, Mercatus, Johnson, etc. One for the spleen, amongst many other, I will not omit, cited by Hildesheim, prescribed by Matthias Flaccus, and out of the authority of Benevenius. Antony Benevenius, in a hypochondriacal passion, cured an exceedingly great swelling of the spleen with capers alone, a meat befitting that infirmity, and frequent use of the water of a smith's forge. By this physic he helped a sick man, whom all other physicians had forsaken, that for 7 years had been splenetic. And of such force is this water, that those creatures as drink of it have commonly little or no spleen. See more excellent medicines for the spleen in him and Ludovicus Mercatus, who is a great magnifier of this medicine. This calibs praeparatus, or steel drink, is much likewise commended to this disease by Daniel Sennertus, Book 1, Part 2, Chapter 12, and admired by Julius Caesar Claudinus. He calls steel the proper alexipharmacum of this malady, and much magnifies it. Look for receipts in them. Averters must be used to the liver and spleen, and to scour the mesaraic veins, and they are either too open or provoke urine. You can open no place better than the hemorrhoids, which, if by horse leeches they be made to flow, there may be again such an excellent remedy as Plotter holds. Sallustius Salvian will admit no other phlebotomy but this, and by his experience in an hospital which he kept, he found all mad and melancholy men worse for other bloodletting. Laurentius, chapter 15, calls this of horseleeches a sure remedy to empty the spleen and mesaraic membrane. Only Montanus, Concilium 241, is against it. To other men, saith he, this opening of the hemorrhoids seems to be a profitable remedy. For my part, I do not approve of it, because it draws away the thinnest blood and leaves the thickest behind. Aetius, Vidus Vidius, Mercurialis, Fuchsius recommend diuretics, or such things as provoke urine, as aniseeds, dill, fennel, germander, ground pine sodden in water or drunk in powder. And yet Petrus Bayerus is against them, and so is Hilarius. All melancholy men, saith he, must avoid such things as provoke urine, because by them the subtile or thinnest is evacuated, the thicker matter remains. Clysters are in good request. Trincavelius, Book 3, chapter 38, for a young nobleman, esteems of them in the first place, and Hercules de Saxonia is a great approver of them. I have found, saith he, by experience, that many hypochondriacal melancholy men have been cured by the sole use of clysters. Receipts are to be had in him. Besides those fomentations, irrigations, inunctions, odoraments prescribed for the head, there must be the like used for the liver, spleen, stomach, hypochondries, etc. In crudity, saith Piso, 'tis good to bind the stomach hard to hinder wind, and to help concoction. Of inward medicines I need not speak. Use the same cordials as before. In this kind of melancholy, some prescribe treacle in winter, especially before or after purges, or in the spring as Avicenna, Trincavelius Mithridrate, Montaltus peony seed, unicorn's horn, Ostocorde cervi, etc. Amongst topics or outward medicines, none are more precious than baths, but of them I have spoken. Fomentations to the hypochondries are very good, of wine and water in which are sodden southernwood, melilot, epithyme, mugwort, senna, polypody, as also cerotes, plaisters, liniments, ointments for the spleen, liver, and hypochondries, of which look for examples in Laurentius, Jobertus, Montanus, Montaltus, Hercules de Saxonia, Faventinus, and so of epithems, digestive powders, bags, oils. Octavius Horatianus, Book 2, chapter 5, prescribes cholastic cataplasms, or dry purging medicines. Piso, dropaces of pitch, and oil of rue, applied at certain times to the stomach, to the metaphrene, or part of the back which is over against the heart. Aetius, synepisms. Montaltus, chapter 35, would have the thighs to be cauterized. Mercurialis prescribes beneath the knees. Laelius Aegubinus, Concilium 77, for a hypochondriacal Dutchman, will have the cautery made in the right thigh, and so Montanus, Concilium 55. The same Montanus, Concilium 34, approves of issues in the arms or hinder part of the head. Bernardus Paternus in Hildesheim would have issues made in both the thighs. Lodovicus Mercatus prescribes them near the spleen, aut prope ventriculi regimen, or in either of the thighs. Ligatures, frictions, and cupping glasses above or about the belly, without scarification, which Felix Platerus so much approves, may be used as before. Subsection 2. Correctors to expel wind, against costiveness, etc. In this kind of melancholy, one of the most offensive symptoms is wind, which, as in the other species, so in this, hath great need to be corrected and expelled. The medicines to expel it are either inwardly taken or outwardly. Inwardly to expel wind are simples or compounds. Simples are herbs, roots, etc., as galanga, gentian, angelica ennula, calamus aromaticus, valerian, zeodote, iris, condite ginger, aristoloche, cycliminus, china, ditander, pennyroyal, rue, calamint, bayberries and bay leaves, betony, rosemary, hyssop, sabine, centauri, mint, chamomile, stachys, agnus castus, broom flowers, oregon, orange pills, etc. Spices, as saffron, cinnamon, bezoar stone, myrrh, mace, nutmegs, pepper, cloves, ginger, seeds of anise, fennel, amni, carry, nettle, rue, etc., juniper berries, grana paradisi, compounds, dianisum, diagalanga, diaciminum, diacalaminth, electuarium de Bacchus lauri, benedicta laxativa, pulvis ad status antid florent, pulvis carminativus, aromaticum rosatum, treacle, mithridate, etc. This one caution of Gualter Bruel is to be observed in the administering of these hot medicines and dry, that whilst they covet to expel wind, they do not inflame the blood, and increase the disease. Sometimes, as he saith, medicines must more decline to heat, sometimes more to cold, as the circumstances require, and as the parties are inclined to heat or cold. Outwardly taken to expel winds are oils, as of chamomile, rue, bays, etc., fomentations of the hypochondries, with the decoctions of dill, pennyroyal, rue, bay leaves, cumin, etc., bags of chamomile flowers, aniseed, cumin, bays, rue, wormwood, ointments of the oil of spikenard, wormwood, rue, etc. Areteus prescribes cataplasms of chamomile flowers, fennel, aniseeds, cumin, rosemary, wormwood leaves, etc. Cupping glasses applied to the hypochondries without scarification do wonderfully resolve wind. Fernelius Concilium 43 much approves of them at the lower end of the belly. Lodovicus Mercatus calls them a powerful remedy, and testifies moreover out of his own knowledge how many he hath seen suddenly eased by them. Julius Caesar Claudinus admires these cupping glasses, which he calls out of Galen, a kind of enchantment, they cause such present help. Empirics have a myriad of medicines, as to swallow a bullet of lead, etc., which I voluntarily omit. Amatus Lusitanus, for a hypochondriacal person that was extremely tormented with wind, prescribes a strange remedy. Put a pair of bellows end into a clyster pipe, and applying it into the fundament, open the bowels, so draw forth the wind. Natura non admittit vacuum. He vaunts he was the first invented of this remedy, and by means of it speedily eased a melancholy man. Of the cure of this flatuous melancholy, read more in Fienus de Flatibus, chapter 26, et passum alias. Against headache, vertigo, vapours which ascend forth of the stomach to molest the head, read Hercules de Saxonia, and others. If costiveness offend in this, or any other of the three species, it is to be corrected with suppositories, clysters, or lenitives, powder of senna, chondrite prunes, etc. Take as much as a nutmeg at a time, half an hour before dinner or supper. See more in Montanus, Concilium 229. Hildesheim, Petrus Cnemander, and Montanus commend Cyprian turpentine, which they would have familiarly taken to the quantity of a small nut, 2 or 3 hours before dinner and supper, twice or thrice a week if need be. For besides that it keeps the belly soluble, it clears the stomach, opens obstructions, cleanseth the liver, provokes urine. These, in brief, are the ordinary medicines which belong to the cure of melancholy, which, if they be used aright, no doubt may do much good. Si non lavando saltem leniendo valent, peculiaria bene selecta, saith Bessardus. A good choice of particular receipts must needs ease, if not quite cure, not one, but all or most, as occasion serves. Et quae non prosunt singula, multa juvant. End of section 39. End of The Anatomy of Melancholy, Volume 2, by Robert Burton. Recording by Sean Michael Hogan, St. John's, Newfoundland, Canada.